Hey guys, Fox here, and today we're going to be looking at some reported rule changes for the upcoming 2025 United Football League season. Now, this is coming from Mike Mitchell, who claimed that he was able to get an early copy of the 2025 rulebook. So this is not the technical official release per the UFL. This is what Mike Mitchell has found in the rulebook. So if any updates do end up happening, in the future, the next few weeks, something, I will post an update video to this. But there was two big rule changes as well as like another smaller one to go over. And before we get into that, just an FYI, we are less than 10 subscribers away from the big 1,000. We are doing a giveaway for some AF blasters, USFL box sets, and a couple other things. So if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel. But without further ado, let's get started with the actual article. Now, this is from UFL News Hub, which has done like a lot of overhauling and the people who write for them and all that. And this is one that Mike Mitchell pretty much made. I know technically it was like the actual UFL News Hub owner. Point is, this is from what Mike Mitchell has found. And of course, as you can see in the title here, the biggest change is to the kickoff. So the kickoff, to put it simply, is going back to the XFL version. Now, this is a very divisive topic between a lot of people. The fact is, a lot of people try to put out a bunch of misinformation about either kickoff to try and prove their point. The main facts are that from everything we've seen in terms of safety, both kickoffs are safe. And in terms of returns, both were far better than the traditional NFL kickoff. But in terms of which they are doing, they are going to the XFL kickoff. Now, I put on Twitter that my thoughts are pretty much the same as Moose. I personally prefer the USFL one. I don't think they should change, but it is understandable why they are, and is why I'm not against it. The NFL has gone to the XFL kickoff, and while admittedly the UFL, like normal, is going to have a better version of it, which we'll get to in a second, it does make sense, right? Your best performing players, all in all, are special teams players, right? Your Brandon Aubreys, your Jake Bates, your Cavante Turpins. So playing into that strength makes sense, even though the extra point isn't being done. Again, it's a weird thing, but I understand why they're changing it, and I'm fully behind it for the reason of it making sense to get returners to the NFL. Now, in terms of the official wording, the kicker restraining line is going to be at the 30-yard line for a kickoff or safety kick, blah, blah, blah. Kicking team's restraining line is at the 40-yard line. Their team's 40-yard line. The receiving team's restraining line is going to be at the receiving team's 35-yard line, so 5 yards between the two teams. The setup zone is going to be within the 5-yard area between the receiving team's restraining line and the 35-yard line, so the 35 and the 30-yard line, and the landing zone will be from the 20-yard line to the goal line. The UFL is using a different kickoff point and touchback than the NFL, but the general idea is the same. Touchbacks in the NFL are to the 35, where in the NFL it's 30. The kickoff point line is to the 30, whereas in the NFL it's 35. So the main reason for this, of course, is because of the fact that the biggest thing with overall spring football kickoffs, this goes for either the USFL or XFL kickoff, is that they want to make sure that the ball is being returned. And that if it's not returned, you're getting really good field position. Again, the touchback being to the 35 versus the 30, it may only sound like 5 yards, but again, 5 yards is a huge deal when you're talking about just getting into field goal range, right? If you only need 1 or 2 big pass plays compared to 2 or 3, you're making it much easier to get into field goal range to score, which again decentivizes kicking in the touchbacks. It's to make kickoffs actually relevant, especially because you have like the 40-yard kick or the 40-yard where it goes to if the ball is, misses the landing zone and all that. Now, in terms of the overall image of this from Chris Tisdale is a good representation of what it looks like for those of you who do not remember or know how this exactly is going to look like. Essentially, you're going to have the kicker on their own 30-yard line, and then you're going to have the two teams lining up 5 yards away from each other. You're going to have that setup zone, and you're going to have the returners in the returning area. Again, very simple. The overall rulings and the touchbacks and all that are very similar to the USFL kickoff they had last year. Again, it's 35 if it's a touchback, the 40 if it ends up being like short of the landing zone. It makes sense. Again, you're wanting to incentivize returning the ball and kicking it to allow returns, right? The biggest issue, of course, with the NFL kickoff before they went to the XFL method was the fact that teams were just kicking the ball past the end zone, right? And the team was getting the ball at like a 25, wasn't a big deal. So when you're doing it like this, now you're making it to where it's actually a penalty in a lot of ways to kick it into the end zone, right? You get a touchback, team gets it 35-yard line, right where the receiving team starts there. And again, as you can see here, you only got to get to like the 40-yard line. You're in, granted, very long field goal range, but you're in field goal range for what some of these spring kickers have done before. So you make it to where it's very easy to get in that range. Again, you want to decentivize kicking the ball into the end zone. You want to incentivize returning it. So that's how that works. Now, the other big change was to the Super Challenge. Now, the Super Challenge itself is a rule that everybody really loved and was hoping would be in the UFL, and it was. The Super Challenge allows you to challenge literally anything. A false start, an offsides, a fumble, interception, anything you can challenge it. So now you will have the opportunity to get a second challenge if your first one is successful. Again, this is very similar like the NFL. The NFL has it to where it's like you get 2 challenges. If one successful, you get a third, I believe is the new rule or something like that. So again, very simple. If you succeed once, you get a second one. Now, this is overall a really good idea and kind of exposing how good a team's replay analysts are, as well as their head coach. Look, before, if you failed a Super Challenge, it was a big blow, but at the end of the day, you really didn't lose too much. Whereas now, if you fail your first challenge, you're now preventing yourself from getting a second one. Whereas if you succeed your first one, you get a second one, and you succeed in that one, you just made 2 game-changing calls potentially get reversed. You see what I mean? So things like Reggie Barlow being criticized for his use of challenges last year, if he ends up fixing that, it's going to look really good this year because he's going to be able to use 2 challenges a game. However, if he doesn't fix it and his opponents do take advantage of it, you'll see a big head coach discrepancy. Essentially, we're going to see the success rate of these super challenges being a direct correlator to how good these head coaches are at reversing these play calls. Because of the fact you have the power to have a super challenge instead of the NFL's challenge where you can only challenge, a set amount of things, this can really be a huge game changer to coaches that know what they're doing. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with these teams getting a second challenge as long as they're successful with their first one. It also is going to incentivize you to challenge plays early. The biggest issue with the one super challenge rule is that a lot of coaches would kind of just put it in their pocket. They'll see a play in the second quarter where, let's just say, a guy ends up throwing a deep 25-yard pass in the end zone on third down for a touchdown, but it was like 3rd and 1, so they might go for it on 4th down. You did see they had a false start, so then they lose 5 yards, but they have to redo the down. But then you say, you know what? This would help a lot right now, but what if I need this in the 4th quarter? And you don't use it. So now you're going to incentivize using that first challenge whenever you see something you know is going to get overturned. That's why that, in theory, you should not see very many fails on the first challenge. And if you see somebody routinely fail on the first challenge, that's a damning statement to them as a head coach. Because now you're just using it when you know you're going to succeed because you're going to have that second one in your pocket to use later in the game. This is a brilliant change, easily the best rule change of the 3 that we're going to talk about today. Again, I know the kickoff change, a lot of people are happy about it, but this is a change that nobody should be upset about and everybody should love. This is a great decision, adding that second challenge if you're successful. Now, the third minor rule change is mainly the fact that the replay booth can now be used to disqualify a player, or if a foul is called for intentional grounding and there's clear, obvious video evidence, blah, 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 you can change it. Again, expanding the thing most people love about the UFL over the NFL, and that's the replay booth and the command center, the fact they can immediately see these things, change it all right. Giving them more power is a great thing. Look, with how the NFL was this past season, especially with some of those Chiefs games and some of the, other games we've seen, having the replay booth and making it even more powerful is actually a good thing, because when you're at the point where we are now in terms of technology and how refing stuff is, all that, right, you want every call to pretty much be called correctly. And when you have a replay booth like this getting even more power, that's actually a good thing because you're able to fix a lot of these issues that really shouldn't exist at all, right? Disqualification of a player, that's a huge deal if someone gets disqualified or doesn't but should. Now you can look at it and get things done right. So, really good change here. I like this one as well. So that'll do it. This has been Zom Fox. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. Again, we're getting very close to 1,000 subscribers, where, again, I will be posting in a community post that says, hey, on this date, we're going to have the actual, post start for the giveaway. You have to have an Instagram or Twitter account to be able to claim the prize. It's just doing stuff through YouTube is a nightmare. So to actually claim the prize, you're going to have one of those two. I could care less which one, but you have to have one of them. And again, make sure you subscribe with the bell on because we are getting closer and closer to the season starting, meaning we're going to have a lot of videos coming up for this season. We just had the QBs that returning video. Expect the QB rooms video soon. I'm kind of waiting for DC to get their 3rd quarterback, but who knows if that's going to happen. But that'll do it. As always, guys, have a great night.